Just imagine this for a moment. The person you trusted with your heart, your future, your entire sense of safety, stood before you and made a choice that shattered everything you believed about your life together. Your breath feels heavy, your chest tight, and there's a single question echoing in your mind. Why wasn't I enough? This title, Your Husband Chose Another Wife, but what he wants to tell you now will shock you, carries a deep emotional weight because it touches one of the most painful experiences a person can go through. Betrayal mixed with confusion, loss, and unanswered questions. At first glance, it sounds like a story about replacement, rejection, and heartbreak. But beneath the surface, it hints that the story is not finished, that something unexpected is about to be revealed. The phrase, "your husband chose another wife," immediately establishes a sense of abandonment. It implies that a deliberate decision was made, not by fate, not by circumstances, but by someone who was supposed to protect and prioritize you. The word chose is especially powerful because it suggests intention. It forces the listener or reader to confront the idea that love, commitment, and loyalty were weighed against someone else and lost. This alone can trigger feelings of anger, humiliation, grief, and deep self-doubt. Many people internalize such a moment, wondering what they lacked or what they did wrong, even when the truth may have little to do with them. This part of the title taps into a universal fear, being replaced. It brings forward questions about worth, identity, and security. When a husband chooses another wife, it is not just a change in relationship status. It can feel like the destruction of a shared history, dreams, and promises. Everything familiar suddenly feels unstable. Trust breaks, and the future becomes uncertain. However, the second half of the title changes the emotional direction entirely. But what he wants to tell you now will shock you, introduces suspense and curiosity. It suggests that the husband's story, perspective, or confession is not what you expect. This creates emotional tension because the audience is already in pain from the first statement, and now they are being told that there is more. Something surprising, possibly revealing, maybe even transformative. The word but is crucial. It acts as a turning point. It tells us that the situation is not as simple as betrayal and abandonment. There is another layer waiting to be uncovered. This could mean regret, a hidden truth, a realization that came too late, or even a confession that changes how everything is understood. It keeps the reader emotionally engaged because humans naturally seek closure and understanding, especially after trauma. What he wants to tell you now implies that time has passed. Something has happened internally within the husband. Perhaps he has reflected, suffered consequences, or reached an emotional awakening. It suggests that silence has ended and communication is about to begin. And communication after betrayal is often loaded with raw honesty. The listener wonders, is he apologizing? Is he confessing a mistake? Is he revealing pressure, manipulation, or misunderstandings? Or is he admitting that the choice did not bring the happiness he expected? The phrase will shock you heightens emotional impact. Shock does not always mean something positive. It means something powerful enough to disrupt expectations. The audience is prepared for pain, but also secretly hopes for validation, that their feelings were justified, that their worth was never the issue, or that the truth will finally make sense of the chaos they experienced. Shock can come in many forms: remorse, unexpected love, painful honesty, or a complete reversal of assumptions. Overall, the title is designed to pull someone into an emotional journey. It reflects real-life experiences where people are left broken by choices they didn't make, yet still seek understanding. It acknowledges the pain first, rather than dismissing it, which is why it resonates so strongly. It says, yes, something terrible happened to you, and your feelings are valid. Only after validating that pain does it offer the promise of revelation. The title also subtly empowers the listener. By focusing on what the husband wants to say now, it shifts the dynamic slightly. The husband is no longer the one making choices. He is the one seeking to speak, possibly to explain or confess. The listener, meanwhile, becomes the one who holds the power to listen accept, reject, or heal. This reversal can be emotionally satisfying for someone who felt powerless at the moment of betrayal. In essence, this title is not just about a husband choosing another wife. It is about the aftermath of that choice, the emotional wreckage, the unanswered questions, and the human need for truth. It promises a moment where silence breaks and reality surfaces, even if that reality is uncomfortable. It speaks to anyone who has ever been left wondering why, and whether the story they were told was ever complete. The emotional power of this title also lies in how closely it mirrors real experiences that many people are afraid to speak about openly. When a husband chooses another wife, society often rushes to judge, justify, or normalize the situation, leaving the first wife emotionally isolated. This title does the opposite. It centers the emotional impact on the person who was left behind, acknowledging the silent suffering, the nights filled with unanswered questions, and the quiet breakdown of self-worth that often follows such a decision. Another important layer of the title is the inner conflict it creates. On one hand, there is deep hurt and resentment. On the other, there is curiosity and unresolved attachment. Even after betrayal, emotions do not simply disappear. Love, habit, shared memories, and emotional bonds remain. The idea that he wants to tell you something now stirs a conflict between self-protection and the desire to understand. Should you listen? Should you care? The title reflects this emotional tug-of-war, which makes it painfully relatable. The shock implied in the title may also represent the realization that the choice he made did not bring him peace. Often, people assume that when someone chooses another partner, they must be happier, more fulfilled, or more in love. But reality is rarely that simple. The shocking truth could be that the grass was not greener, that the decision came with regret, guilt, or unexpected consequences. For the listener, this can be both painful and validating at the same time. Painful because it confirms the damage done, and validating because it proves that the loss was not due to personal failure. This title also opens space for the theme of accountability. When someone wants to tell you something after causing harm, it suggests an acknowledgement of responsibility. Whether the message is an apology, an explanation, or a confession, it implies that the husband can no longer escape the emotional weight of his actions. That alone can be shocking, especially for someone who was left feeling invisible or dismissed. Being seen and acknowledged, even late, can carry emotional significance. There is also an unspoken question embedded in the title. Does this revelation change anything? The shock may not lead to reconciliation or forgiveness. In fact, it may strengthen the listener's resolve to move on. Sometimes, hearing the truth confirms what the heart already knew, that the relationship was broken long before the final choice was made. In this way, the title is not just about shock, it is about awakening. The title speaks to emotional maturity and growth as well. It hints that time and experience have reshaped perspectives on both sides. The husband's desire to speak suggests he has reached a point where denial is no longer possible. For the listener, engaging with this truth, or choosing not to, becomes an act of self-respect rather than desperation. The shock, then, is not only in what he says, but in how the listener has changed. Another reason this title resonates is because it reflects the human need for narrative completion. Betrayal leaves stories unfinished, conversations end abruptly, promises are broken without explanation. This title promises an ending to the unanswered questions, even if that ending is not happy. Closure does not always heal the wound, but it helps the wound stop bleeding. Emotionally, the title also challenges the idea that the person who leaves holds all the power. By focusing on what the husband wants to say now, it subtly shows that his choice did not end the story. The emotional aftermath continues, and sometimes the one who left carries their own burden of regret, realization, or loss. This realization can be shocking because it breaks the illusion that the one who was chosen over has won. Ultimately, this title is about truth arriving late and the complicated emotions that come with it. It acknowledges that pain does not disappear just because explanations arrive. But it also recognizes that hearing the truth, even a shocking one, can mark the beginning of emotional freedom. The listener is no longer trapped in assumptions, self-blame, or unanswered questions. They are finally given the full picture, and with it, the power to decide how the story truly ends. In that sense, the real shock may not be what the husband says at all. The real shock may be the listener realizing their own strength, clarity, and ability to move forward, with or without him,